my son's value as a human being didn't go down because he kicked his brother.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Today's guest, Nicole Greene, has a very strong belief system that you have value and you are a good human being and that you deserve respect and you don't have to prove anything to her. And there's nothing you can do that will change her mind. Nicole is here talking today about unconditional positive regard and how it builds the relationship with your children that allows you to navigate all the other stuff. She is a really special person. She is a national board certified special education teacher. And if having a 3 and a 5-year-old isn't enough to show you that she's really kind of mastered this skill, let me tell you, every single day she walks in and she teaches a special education middle school class. That type of person deserves an award. In fact, she may get one. She is up for the New York State Teacher of the Year. So I would love for you to walk into this episode with an open mind and an open heart and kind of check at the door all the belief systems that you have about what kids should and shouldn't do, and just really listen to her story. I was moved, and I know you will be too. Nicole, welcome to the show. I am thrilled that you're here.
Hi, Cara. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you again. And I'm so excited to be here and talk about all my favorite things.
Yeah, just so all of you out there listening know, this is a really unique situation because typically if I meet one of my guests in real life, it happens kind of randomly in the future after we have recorded together. And this is the opposite. Nicole and I presented together as part of a teacher slam in Baltimore, Maryland. And so we did spend time together in real life. And now here you are coming to do an episode with us.
So exciting. So awesome. And it was so fun presenting. That was such a great experience, great conference. And you absolutely killed it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So just so you all know, we all worked together from different angles to talk about trauma-informed practices. And that's a really special topic. And so, yes, I talked about my lane, which is how to use language and work with people, maybe not even with the words, right? That receptive language that we feel. But you brought this incredible topic of unconditional positive regard. So let's start with who you are, right? You're a mom, you're a teacher. Tell us a little bit about your life.
Yeah, so this is my 12th year in the classroom. I am certified in birth through 21 plus, exceptional needs specialist. I'm a teacher in New York. I'm a very proud public school teacher. And I also am a very proud mother. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And both my husband and I are neurodivergent. We both have ADHD and I also have OCD. So I think, that's a really important component. It's something that I always like to bring to the front because it is integral to who I am as a person and as a parent and as a teacher. So I have 2 sons and they are chef's kiss. I'm obsessed.
Wow. All right. So this is ideal. And this is why I asked you to come on to the show. So let's dive in. What is unconditional positive regard?
Yeah. So I first learned about unconditional positive regard I'm a very obsessed teacher nerd, proud teacher nerd. And so I listen each week to this episode, to this podcast called Cult of Pedagogy. And maybe last February, March, I think it was January, February, it was in the winter. I had listened to an episode called Nothing's Gonna Change My Mind. And the guest was Alex Chevron-Vinette, who's a trauma-informed educator. And she was talking about unconditional positive regard. And I clocked it, heard it, but so many things when we are inundated with information and you are a teacher nerd who never stops reading and learning things, lots of things get kind of just shoved to the back of the mental filing cabinet, right? And then, so I went about my school year and I was like, I totally do that, and so towards the end of the school year, my students actually staged this coup, if you will, or staged a walkout of sorts. And they all not all of them, there was about 4 of them who decided they were not going to do any more work. They just pretend, they just kind of put their pencils down. It was very quiet. It was, they just kind of put their pencils down and refused to work for the rest of the period. And so, I talked to their parents, I talked to my colleagues, we figured out a plan forward. And the students with whom I had kind of developed a really deep, authentic relationship with naturally, when I told them hey, tomorrow's a fresh start, I'm not giving this any more attention. When tomorrow came, those kids were like, hey, Miss Greene, so nice to see you. What's up, Miss G? And they just moved on. But the students who I hadn't really built that deep rapport with, the rest of the school year was just off, right? I just could feel that sense of they were uncomfortable. They didn't really know how to move forward after they had made such a big mistake, for lack of a better term. And I realized that, one, that I needed to do something different, but also more importantly, that I needed to do something different for them so that when the mistake happens, because mistakes happen all the time, right? Kids have the opportunity, they don't feel that sense of shame, that sense of discomfort. They know that when I say tomorrow's a fresh start, I really mean it.
Yeah.
And I think actually, so the framework really of what unconditional positive regard is just the concept that all people are worthy, all people deserve respect, and all people deserve to be cared for. Full stop. There's nothing else to it, which sounds really simple and easy, but it's really that unconditional piece is where it gets really hard and really complex and really, intentional to sustain. So it's the practice of saying to yourself, do I change my tone of voice when my child does something that I don't want them to do, right? Not okay, obviously we have to be firm, but is there a tone of shame? And how do we sort of, it's a guiding practice for how we engage in difficult moments with our kids. And I was thinking actually last night, just about the setting up for the podcast, and my son, my 5-year-old son, who's not, technically not a toddler, but definitely still developing the brain, right? And so he kept kicking his brother, and I kept I would just, block his foot or just hold on to his foot and say, I can't let you kick your brother. And every time I moved the barrier, he would kick him again. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Unfortunately, we've lost our chance and it's just time to go to bed. And he had a meltdown, right? I'm not brushing my teeth and mommy's so mean and you're the worst mommy ever and I'm never going to love you again. And just all of those really big things. So I get the kids into their beds and he's like, I hate mommy. She's so mean. And I was doing my best to stay calm through it all, right? But I was putting my other son, the younger son, just laying. I went to lay next to him, and he's like, my older son kind of stopped crying and said, "You have to lay in the middle." They share a bed by choice, but they share a bed, so they're very obsessed with each other. So I had sort of laid next to my one son, and then he stopped crying. And he was like, "You didn't lay in the middle. That's your spot." And I was like, "Oh, well, I was trying to give you space because because you said you hated me and I thought you would want some space. And he said, even if I hate you, you have to come to the middle. And that was just such this like profound moment of like it all kind of coming full circle for me, that like it was like a real pat on the back moment, but also just this idea that like, wow, that unconditional positive regard works. Like it works with parents and it works with little kids, because he didn't feel this sense of like, if I had ever said like, I hate you to my mom, like I would have hid from her for days, right? Because I would have just been so afraid and embarrassed and like full of shame and dread. But, you know, so he knew that he was wrong, but he also knew that like, it was okay. And that like, he still needed his mom and that he could say that. So afterwards I laid down next to him and he kind of calmed down and he said, okay, you know, it's really important that we repair. That was his exact language, which I thought it was so cute. But, you know, it's like, I think that when kids are given unconditional positive regard at such a young age, it like, wow, what a narrative change, that internal dialogue, right?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to. I feel like I went on such a long rant, but obviously I'm really passionate about it. So
yes. And there's so much good in there, Nicole. Like, first of all, for a lot of our listeners, this might be the first time that they're hearing that not only can a 5-year-old have a big feeling, which we know is true, right? And feelings are transient. They don't stay forever. Yeah. But that 5-year-old can name the feeling, own the feeling, take responsibility for their word.
I didn't go there because I was like, oh, I've been talking for a long time. Right? But he did. He said, we need to repair. And I said, okay, do you want to start or do you want me to start? And he said, I'd like you to start. So I said, you know, I should have given you a warning. I'm not sorry I turned the TV off and said it's time to go to bed. But I think I should have given you a warning and said, if you do it again, I'm going to turn the TV off. And he said, and I said, that was probably really abrupt. And that's probably why you got so upset. And he said, yeah. And I'm sorry I was kicking my brother. And next time I'll just listen the first time. And then I said, okay, I want you to think like so then he was like, sounds good. And he was like, well, we still haven't finished talking. And I was like, okay, do you still want to like, just kind of like role playing of like, okay, do you want me to talk or do you want to talk? And then he did come around and say, I'm sorry, I don't hate you. I really wanted to hurt your feelings because you had hurt mine. And like, what a profound, and I truly like, he is amazing and he is like deep and thoughtful and he has the kindest heart of anyone that I've ever met. I don't want to like just, I don't want to, you know, there's nature and nurture there, right? Yeah. But I truly believe that when kids are met with unconditional positive regard, and I see this so much in my own work with my students, it's like, there's not the need to like run from your mistakes, right? Because you know that if you make a mistake, it doesn't change how loved you are. It doesn't change the value that you hold as a person. And I emphatically don't believe that that is too big for a 5-year-old to hold or a 3-year-old to hold. They, you know, they're building their internal dialogue every day, every second. What we say to them is what, you know, they will then say to themselves.
Yes.
And if what we say to you is, nothing's going to change my mind. I love you so much and nothing's going to change my mind. What they say is like, I'm worthy of, or what they hear and what they internalize is I'm worthy of love no matter what I do. Right. And like when you can enter a space as a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, turn it into a 15-year-old, and you know that like you can make a mistake and you can tell your parent about that mistake. Like, man, what a difference it would be if kids and teenagers could come home and say like, yeah, I messed up about this. Right. Or my parents were always the like, if you're at a party and people are drinking and you feel uncomfortable, like call me. And I'm like, I'm not going to call you. I'm going to get grounded. Like I'm going to be in trouble. Right. Like It's that, like, that's the idea. I think lots of people think, oh, I do unconditional positive regard. I say that to my kid, but I think, you know, what Alex Finette says is like, safe spaces are felt and not said, right? Yeah. Like you can say them, but it doesn't make it a safe space. And I think when you meet your kids with unconditional positive regard, it really does build that safe space.
It really does. Okay, Toddler Tribe, I'm going to get you back to this episode in just a minute, but I wanted to tell you something that I don't think people tell you enough. Toddlerhood is not terrible. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be a terrific time of exploration and learning and deep connection between parent, caregiver, and child. And so I invite you to go have a look at my Transforming the Toddler Years course, because it doesn't have to be as hard as it feels every single day. We'll look through the 6 soul and science-based modules together. The magic of your mindset. I'll talk you through the power of your perspective and how you can truly shift everyday moments. I crack the hood on what's going on in your baby's brain, break down the linguistics of the language we use, how we talk to kids, and how they hear us. And then we go all in on the science of strategies and build you a personalized parenting toolkit that allows you to tackle every day and feel a real sense of accomplishment that you are raising your unique, authentic child to be the very best version of themselves, and you're growing every day too. I'm 100% in your corner. These are all self-paced modules, but every course purchase comes with free access to our bi-monthly group coaching program for 3 whole months. So hop on in and let's get started transforming your toddler years today. Use the link in the show notes, and I cannot wait to see you there. I know this isn't true, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute, because I know there's...
Only for you, Cara, because when my husband says he's playing devil's advocate, I say the devil doesn't need an advocate.
Ooh, that's a good one.
He's bad enough.
I'm taking that to church with me on Sunday. Right? Well done. Because I know that we live in a society where our brain bias goes negative, where we tend to think from that cynical perspective first, and then try to override. So when you're saying all behaviors are appropriate, it's totally fine, like, I will love you no matter what. What do you say to the people who then come back and are like, well, does that basically give kids a free pass? It's just permission to be bad. And then, like, you're going to get forgiven. And I know that's not how it works, but I want to hear you explain for us why that's true.
Totally. Yeah. I think, like, that is people's gut reaction, is this idea that unconditional positive regard is a lack of accountability, a lack of consequences, like a lowering of our standards of behavior. And I understand why that would be somebody's like gut reaction. But the reality is that, like, it's not a lack of consequences or an accepting of all behaviors. It's just acknowledging that you are worthy of respect even if you make a mistake, right? Even when you have a behavior. So, like, if we're using my son last night for an example, I didn't just keep letting him kick his brother because I have unconditional positive regard for him. And I didn't, apologize for turning the TV off and saying, we're all done with this, right? The boundary stayed and the boundary existed. And the consequence was that we have to try again tomorrow. Like, you're showing me that you are too dysregulated to watch TV. You can't keep your brother safe, and I can't convince you to do so. And so the boundary has to be there. You're allowed to be as upset about that as you want. That's the feeling, right? You're allowed to be upset. You're not allowed to hit your brother or kick your brother. And I forgive you. And his brother was like, don't worry about it. Like, but it's not a lack of consequence. It's just the forgiveness is inherent because my son my son's value as a human being didn't go down because he kicked his brother, right? My son's value as or like deserving of respect didn't diminish because he made a mistake. And I think that that's the really important piece. It's rooted in respect. And I know that this is sometimes like an unpopular thought or opinion, but I believe in respecting kids. I don't believe, and I believe that my own students, my relationships with my students and my relationship with my own kids is a testament to like, when you treat kids with respect, they treat you with respect back, right? Like respect is not top down, like taken or given but not taken, or vice versa, right? It's mutual. And I believe that like when we share and give unconditional positive regard to kids, we're not saying you can do whatever you want, I'm a pushover. We're saying that like, I will hold a boundary, and also I'll love you through that boundary. And then when we get to the other side, I'm still going to love you. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to feel shame. You don't have to feel embarrassed. Like, it sets the conditions. I think that's what Alex Chevron-Burnett says. It sets the conditions for the relationship to continue after the mistake has happened. And I think as parents, as teachers, whoever is listening, you know that the mistakes are going to happen, right? It's not about just like, oh, we just don't care. And I think, the consequences or whatever, it's actually, I think, makes the consequences really clear and easier to follow through on, because you know that it's not going to diminish your relationship with your kid. Also, I think there are a lot of parents who have the best of intentions, but it's that idea of like, I just don't want to fight with them, right? Like, oh, whatever, who cares? One more lollipop, one more blah, 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 because it's like, it's just not worth the fight. But like, when it doesn't have to be a fight because that respect is mutual, I think it really empowers parents to set healthy, meaningful boundaries. And I think it shows parents and kids what a reciprocal relationship looks like, right? Like we, so many times or so many moments of parenting, or at least in my friends' parenting experiences, and definitely when I grew up, it was like just very like order barking and like tone policing, right? Yeah. And when you exist in a world of like order barking and tone policing, you're not really like, it's not an enjoyable experience for anyone. And it doesn't really set the conditions for like what a relationship should look like. And then, we wonder why kids go out and don't know how to like have solid friendships and, have respectful relationships with their teachers and their classmates. Like all of that is modeled. I'm big on, as a special educator, like direct instruction, lots of modeling, right? And I think when we use unconditional positive regard, we can really set the conditions and the modeling for really authentic, respectful, reciprocal relationships.
That's exactly it. And what's fascinating is that in the ease of it is where the skill building happens. And I think a lot of people don't get that, right? They think that when we learn skills, it's hard work and we're focused and we're sitting at a desk and we're doing it. But that's not it. It's in the ease of a respectful, open, communicative, trustworthy, honest relationship where we learn skills like owning our consequences. And where I heard you say, this was really interesting. I heard you say, I couldn't convince him to stop.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to, right? Yeah. We're supposed to teach our tiny people that internal motivation process of decision making. If internally I decide to continue, what's going to be the outcome? Where do I have a stopgap where I can make that decision to turn off this behavior because there's a result that I'm looking for, not that my mother is looking for. And oh my, Nicole, that is a nuanced skill. It takes practice and it is tricky, and you're only available to learn it if you're feeling calm and safe inside the UPR bubble.
Right. And that our job as a parent is model that and to make the decision for our child, right? Like at that moment, there was nothing I could do that I hadn't already done calmly and respectfully to support him. And at that time that like, you just have to say, unfortunately, this isn't working for you and for me and for your brother. And so we have to put a pause on this like that, I think that it's really, it's important because all of those skills, like you said, happen in those moments, right? It was like partially in that moment where I had set the boundary. Yes, he learned like, oh, that was too far, right? But it was in the aftermath, right? When we're laying in his bed and he's, snuggled on my chest and I'm just whispering to him like, I love you so much. There's nothing you can do to change my mind. And he says, I'm sorry I kicked my brother. And I'm sorry I said, I hate you. I just wanted to hurt your feelings because you hurt mine. Like when, it's in those moments. And it took a really long time for us to get here. It's not something that's overnight. And I think that is also something that's important as we talk about unconditional positive regard, especially like as you get into older grades and we're dealing with more trauma that really needs to be like kind of broken down and taken apart and rewired. But at the younger age, it takes a lot, a lot of modeling, a lot of trust, a lot of respect building. And even, with my husband, and my older son, it took a lot of modeling. Like for him, he would kind of like whisper to me what he wanted to say. And then I would say it to his dad, or I would say it first and then he would say it after. It's not an overnight process and progress is not linear, right? Like there are definitely still days where he'll have like, or my younger son too, will like have a full on tantrum and you're just like, oh, but it's you said something I think that was so important, that it's like, it's that practice skill, right? Deciding to stop kicking your brother, right? And I think when we look at it, and this is something that Alex Finette says too, is like, what if we took every behavior and assumed that it was like that the person had no control over it, right? Like we dig deep into, I think, as special education teachers personally, is a lot of like function of the behavior and is it a can't or a won't? And I think that that's very like God complexy of us to assume that we can even decide if it's a can't or a won't, right? And I think that we, Alex Finette says that we should really assume that it's always a can, right? And when we assume that a child doesn't have the skills yet for the behavior, we're going into teacher mode, not punish mode. We're going into like modeling and skill building, not like punishing and shaming. And when you have that shift, my God, what a difference it makes in the way you approach challenges, the way you approach kids, right? Like the respect you give them when they're facing a challenge, it's really beautiful.
Yeah. And you know what else? I just love this. It opens up the possibility for you to see spaces where you can actually create further learning opportunities. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, my kids are older now, but my 22-year-old had a moment a couple weeks ago where she had a big thing she had to do and she kind of defaulted back, right? This is not linear. She defaulted back and said, will you help me make this phone call? Right? It was the first time doing the big thing. And I said, I won't. Right? You are capable. You have the skills you need. What you're feeling is anxiety around it because it's the first time you've ever had to do it on your own. But if you need someone to believe for you, I'll believe. But you know deep down that you are capable of this. And if I help you, I rob you from going to that next best, most amazing version of you. Yeah. And it was a few hours later and she came back and she was beaming.
Oh, yay.
I did it all by myself, Mom. And all I had to say was, I knew you could. Now you know you can too. And these moments take bravery. they take the ability to hold that feeling in Kate and say, I honor that I'm having this really big feeling right now, but you know what? I'm going to take action around it anyway. Yeah. And your 3-year-olds can do this. Yes. And I mean, the setting is different. It's not a phone call, and your 4-year-olds can do this, and your 5-year-olds can do this, and your middle schoolers can do this, but only if they know that the person saying to them, fly, go, honestly believes them, respects them, and trusts their abilities.
Yeah. I had this moment this morning where my son, we're home on spring break, my 5-year-old wanted to go outside. He asked me if he could go outside, and my gut was to say, like, no, I can't. I'm doing laundry right now. And then I knew that he would say, like, but I can go. And then, like, I was having this, like, internal dialogue with myself where then I would say, like, no, you're just not ready yet, right? Like, now I'm sitting on the couch. I can see there's windows and my front door, can see my front yard. And I'm like, is he not ready or am I not ready? Right. And I think like that was just something that was so profound to me in that moment where I was like, he knows not to go in the street. You know, my 3-year-old, he'll be like 20 and I'll have him on a leash. He doesn't, the rules do not apply. He's a rule breaker. And I love that. His wild spirit is my spirit. And I think it's the best thing ever. That said, he's not going to be outside anytime soon by himself. But my 5-year-old is a rule follower and he's not, I just know that he can go out there. And it was my fear, not his fear, right? And my anxiety, not his anxiety. And truly it was my readiness, not his. And so I held my tongue and I said, you know what? Go ahead. And like, I just heard him. He was running around the front yard singing and like playing with our cat and doing whatever. And it was only like 5 minutes. And then he wanted to come back inside all on his own. But I think, when you have that gut reaction to say you're not ready for something, the question has to be, are they not ready or am I not ready? Right. I think about that a lot, even with my own students. Their parents will constantly tell me, oh, they're not ready for this or they can't do that. And I'm like, hold on. Like, let's really give them the chance, right? I mean, it was low stakes in that moment and there will be lots more higher stakes, but just in that thought process of your daughter's, the phone call, right? Like, is she ready? Am I ready? Like, how do we set the stage that was, just like believing and showing him that I believed in him, right? Giving him that chance to prove me wrong and him right.
It's just so powerful. I mean, there's just layers there that we do not have time to unravel, but it is so beautiful that you gut check first, then decide. And honestly, that's the definition of responding, right? What you're talking about with the reactions that we have and the skills that kids don't have, which is why they go subconscious reaction, knee-jerk behavior. It doesn't even come through our filtration system. And so you've spent years practicing unconditional positive regard, training your mind, training your heart to lead with that belief system. And so now I mean, I'm sure you do react because you're a human being, but it sounds like more often than not, you are able to lead with observation and curiosity, do a quick mini assessment, and then make an actual decision. And those 4 steps in combination get easier over time. But yes, if you're out there listening thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like a lot of work. Sure. In the beginning, you're going to have to take it like 1, 2, 3, 4. But before you know it, they'll just start a different domino trigger and that really positive one. And Nicole is proof of that. And your 3 and your 5-year-old are very blessed to have you as a mom. Your middle schoolers, especially in a special ed classroom, are incredibly blessed to have you as a leader and as a teacher. And we are so excited to see whatever comes next for you. And if you ever have any resources that will support people to start doing this in their own homes, then absolutely, we want to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that just off the bat, even if you're a parent, give the Cult of Pedagogy podcast a listen. I believe it's I know it's episode 214 on the Cult of Pedagogy podcast. It's called Nothing's Gonna Change My Mind. You can follow Alex Finette on social media. She's at Unconditional Learning, and she is just a wealth of trauma-informed resources that I think, as a parent, I lean into just as heavily as a teacher. And just know that, yes, it does take some work. But I think that when we, what you get back is tenfold, especially when it's your own children, right? You actually get to see it. A lot of the fruits of my labor in the classroom, I never get to see, right? I'm sowing seeds that I may never see or see glimpses of towards the end of the year. But with your own children, you get to reap the benefits of what you sow when it comes to UPR. So I would say just, really take the time. Take lots of opportunities to reflect, try to take breaths and really engage in that, assume that they can't control whatever happened. Take the time and move forward when you feel like that calm in yourself, because it's really transformative for your relationships with your family, with your kids, with everyone. So
amazing. Thank you so much for bringing this to us.
I'm so excited.
All right, everybody. So you have other steps that you can take. If you are somebody who's having a lot of meltdowns and tantrums happening around you and you need the mindset shifts, go grab those in the show notes. If you're someone who knows you want to talk differently to your kids, but you're struggling to figure out what those sentences might sound like, go grab that free resource that I have for you in the show notes. Really just start leaning into whatever your next best level is, and you know what to do. Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive.